box, that's when you're live, okay?
Okay.
Cool. Right, I'm going to press start now.
So hello everyone. I think this might be the last session for the EdTech Festival of 2 days. So I'm here to introduce Vicky. Vicky is our Key Stage 1 phase leader across our Cornerstone Trust, and she's also one of our literacy specialists working with the English Hub. Vicky has a passion for using online resources to help with her literacy lessons in the classroom, and she's going to talk a little bit about using these tools and the different things to use in terms of making them work hand in hand with forward-thinking teachers. She'll also show some examples of these and then consider the use in which the algorithms that drive these tools can support pupils in getting enough repetitive practice. So I'll hand over to Vicky in a moment. If you again want to ask any questions, then I'll be here to monitor that chat at the side, and then we can ask those questions to Vicky at the end. So I'll hand over to Vicky, but thanks everyone for joining.
Great, thank you, Tonya. So as Tonya said, I am Vicky. I'm going to just talk you through some of the online tools that we use in our current trust, in our current practice, but we're also going to look a bit behind that in terms of the pedagogy, the reasoning behind these programmes and seeing the benefits there. So 21st century literacy is so much more than the traditional literacy that we might come to mind when we say the word among adults or equally among students. The 21st century element is about making things student-centred. So student-centred speaking, listening, reading and writing, and we all know that they are essential elements of the curriculum, not just in English and in a standalone literacy lesson, but for access across the curriculum, from the humanities to coding sessions to accessing art. There are elements of literacy within them. So it is a really crucial part of the current curriculum, and it very much shapes and forms a child's experience throughout school. So I don't think we can really say the word literacy now without including that term digital literacy. So the engagement of pupils with digital tools and embedding them into practice is very much fast becoming essential to practice, both in the classroom, in the workplace and in the wider world. And the success and the proficiency with digital tools is very much becoming a forefront runner in terms of what needs to be known and what tools are desirable for going into the workplace. So students will use multiple sources, including technology, to find and gather the information they need. So we are not just looking at technology itself. In terms of 21st literacy, we still need our reference books, we still need a variety of resources and sources of information, and digital tools are integrated within this, so seamlessly integrating them into everyday instruction. So as Tonya said at the beginning, I am the Key Stage 1 phase lead, but I have very much been in the classroom throughout my time as a teacher as well, and as a phase leader. So I have lots of experience working with children, and it's been a really important part of my practice to embed these tools as a support tool rather than an alternative to traditional literacy skills. So digital literacy tools allow students to do a variety of different things that we wouldn't be able to do with the traditional approach to literacy as a standalone. So we can hear pronunciations and discover rhymes and syllables in words in a way and on a platform that we just wouldn't be able to provide to students without it. We can offer the children the options to read in a variety of contexts. It means that the number of texts we need physically is reduced, and we've got access to hundreds, if not thousands, of different reading opportunities and a much wider platform than they would have access to normally. It also means that we can provide children with images related to the words and the text that they are using. This is not always useful, it's definitely not essential, but there are situations where that's really beneficial to children's learning, and where having imagery supporting what they are reading can develop their understanding and extend it. It also enables us to reinforce literacy through interactive games. So we're going to be looking at a few examples in a minute of the different interactive activities that you may want to use, that children can engage with, and we have found in particular the interactive nature of these games means that the student engagement with them is generally really high. It gives the opportunity for freedom, for fun, to play with and manipulate language without fear of getting things right or wrong. It also enables collaboration with classmates. We've ended up at a time where we probably never thought we would be, but in a time where children can't collaborate with their classmates in the same way as they would have previously. However, these digital tools allow collaboration much wider than a single classroom, and it also enables collaboration across schools, across age groups, which is really beneficial. So the first thing that we need to think about is CAP. So connection, attention, and practice. These are all elements that a successful online literacy tool would have. So we need the children to be connected. They might be connected through previous learning experiences. They might be connected through the imagery and the presentation of the programme. We need something that gets their attention. So lots of these activities are designed to be short activities that children can engage in independently. And we need them to ensure practice. So we need these programmes to enable revise, revisit, review, to ensure that children are not just being exposed to vocabulary, to reading text once or twice, but that there is that repetition. And we're going to have a little look later at how that works within the algorithms. So we really want to move beyond that hands up of traditional literacy. Using online tools really gives children the confidence to get involved in providing answers, providing their opinions, having a go where they may not feel comfortable doing so in the usual classroom. It enables you as teachers, as professionals, to take in the answers of many more pupils than you would be able to by just using that traditional hands up method. And these tools often mark assignments for children and will feed back instantly. And again, that's something that can be really beneficial to fast tracking progress. So preparation and organisation, there are two elements to this. So firstly, for teachers' workload, preparation and organisation is reduced dramatically through the effective integration of online tools. However, they are not a quick, easy fix. And I say that definitely from experience. They can be overly relied on. And when we say independent activities, they need to be independent activities selected and driven by the teacher based on that student's individual learning. So it takes organisation and preparation in some elements to explore these programmes, to know them very well, but equally there is a huge time-saving element in terms of the resources that we can provide and the number of different alternatives that we can provide to children. So structured vocabulary teaching is essential to progress in literacy, and often the teaching of reading, the teaching of writing is central to our curriculum, but we sometimes forget that vocabulary element, and that's a really important part of their progress throughout school and beyond. So this is something that those programs again are really supportive with, and it's really useful to have the suggestions made there. So again, in terms of differentiation, it enables to differentiate much more widely than would be possible without these literacy tools. So for a teacher to differentiate for a class of 30 different ways is going to be somewhat unmanageable. For a teacher to assign through a variety of online literacy tools, different activities in the algorithms and the process, the steps inside there can do those things for them, it means that this is something that they can achieve. So we're going to take a look now at some of the useful programs that we have used. There are a combination of different things that I'm going to talk you through, most of which are subscription based. So you do have to subscribe to many of these. I'll make it clear which ones are which, but we are at a time where this has been quite timely, and it's actually a really good opportunity because many of these programs are offering free trials, and in fact all of the ones that I'm talking about that are subscription based are offering some element of free trial at the moment. So that might be a 14-day free trial, and I very much encourage you to go and have a look at some of these individually once I've given you a brief overview of what they entail, to see whether they would be appropriate for your school. Perhaps you have some of these programs already, so we can just have a look and ensure that you and your staff are utilising them in the best way possible. So let's start with Literacy Planet. Literacy Planet is a student guided learning platform. As you can see from the screenshot, it's a very visual, colourful and engaging programme. Students can navigate the site and very much direct their own learning within there. So there are different levels, there are different tabs and tasks for the different year groups, and they can very much move at their own pace within these. So each step follows the curriculum sequence, so it's really useful for teachers because this is already broken down for them, and it's really easy to look at coverage within this. So all of the key literacy concepts that we've just spoken about are covered within Literacy Planet. So you've got elements of reading, you've got elements of writing, you've got elements of vocabulary in there as well, and the programme can generate reports for individual children, so you can look at their success, you can look at coverage within this. So it's a really good tool for children to get to grips with independently, but there are equally many elements to it that are hugely beneficial to teachers. So it allows teachers to assign specific classwork, and this aligns to the curriculum, so you can search through the year group. So you can see in the screenshot we can go from preschool, you've got that up to year 10, so it goes through secondary school as well, and you've got elements within each year group, and it follows through the different focuses that they should be doing. So students complete exercises that have been assigned to them, and it will then generate and analyse the data based on student progress. So we found this really useful within our trust, because it has enabled teachers to target learning to specific children. So where we have noticed perhaps a gap in a child's learning, and this might be because they didn't get something the first time round, it might be because they have missed a chunk of schooling, we can use this programme to go back and assign things. So we largely use this inside school, but it is a programme that could be used to set homework in the older years. So that's something we do look at in Key Stage 2 and would be definitely appropriate in Key Stage 3 as well. It's something that if you have the subscription to, children are able to access both in school and outside of school. So the feedback for us from parents around this is very much that it's enabled them to kind of see where their child should be. So that's one programme that has been highly useful. One area that I've personally used it a lot in is in the story reading comprehension element. So there are lots of different texts on here, which if teachers look through and pre-prepare and pre-teach vocabulary, it can be very, very time saving. We also have Ready Writer. So this was previously called, you may have known it as Spelladrome. It's part of the Mathletics subscription, so it's the same company, umbrella company as Mathletics, and it, again, like Literacy Planet, it looks at more the spelling element. So while Literacy Planet looks a bit more widely at literacy, Read Writer looks more specifically at spelling. So it's really useful in terms of making personalised word lists. So they can be made either by the teacher themselves, or you can select from the different word lists that are provided within the programme. And again, it's extremely useful for teachers in seeing the coverage and what should be taught and when, and it breaks down into different modules the spelling. So it means that children can go back and revisit things throughout their learning, and it will regenerate these spellings for them if you want it to. So they're very much targeted, and there is live testing and live reporting. As I said, the really beneficial thing here is that students get instant feedback, and this is something with all these online tools that we can't recreate in the classroom. Yes, you can go around. We've very much moved here towards giving verbal feedback where possible, and I know most schools are moving away from, you know, the days of lots and lots of onerous written marking, but actually this is feedback that is instant. Children can know instantly whether they get things right or wrong, and it can be then the teacher's decision how to approach this and what avenue to take following this. So the third programme that we find really useful is slightly different, because it is not a literacy programme per se in that. So Espresso Education, I'm sure lots of you have heard of. It is very much more an umbrella method of looking at subjects across the curriculum. So not only does it look at English, it looks at maths, science, history, and so on. But it does have extremely good structured modules for phonics, spelling, and grammar and punctuation. So it's the phonics within there follows the letters and sounds phases, which if that is the phonics programme that you are following, that is extremely useful, and it breaks them down into each phase. Within this, you can look, there's a really good section for grammar and punctuation, in particular for Key Stage 1. There's they have regularly updated throughout this time the word, sentence and text elements of this. They're big books and videos with lots of stories and poems for children to listen to and watch. So this is more, there is more interactive videos on here, and it is probably easier for children to engage with at home. There's not so much reading to be done. They can kind of sit back and have the programme read things to them. So there's extracts from many popular stories and comprehension modules within there, and within that there's glossaries that children can look through. There's fact files, which again aren't just in this English section, are available across the curriculum, which again is a really useful element. And there's also a weekly news service within there, which gives children a chance to discuss and debate current events. And while that might not strike you directly as literacy, of course, that discussion, that verbal element and developing spoken language skills is a really important thing to think about. So have a think how you might include that in your school day and how that is structured for teachers. We found this a really good element. We use it especially in early years where the children discuss the events, and it's been a really consistent approach for us across the trust. So again, Purple Mash, it's another subscription service, but it again isn't specifically based on English. So there are kind of two elements here. So you might have heard of, or you might already have Purple Mash. There is an add-on to Purple Mash called Serial Mash. Now, Serial Mash, there was a session on it earlier on serialising stories, so if that's of interest to you, then it might be worth going back to watch that recording. But essentially that one looks at the comprehension elements and serialising stories. But within Purple Mash itself, you've got publishing projects, themed leaflets, templates, postcards, many different genres that the children can practice writing in, but in an engaging way where there are specific word banks. And again, this is that time-saving element, word banks that teachers wouldn't necessarily be able to produce for every child, but they are built in within the system. There are often questions for prompts for writing, so you might have a who, what, when, or something along those lines to prompt children and direct them. And there are hundreds of activities on there, again across the curriculum, not just for English, but there are science, history, and I think what I would really urge you to do if you are thinking about a programme is think how that programme fits within what you already do. So is literacy embedded for you across the curriculum? Is it a standalone lesson, or are you confident that it is taught to the same high standard, no matter whether you're doing a religious lesson or you're doing a lesson specifically on grammar? It's those high standards and that consistency that is going to really make a difference. There are also games here which reinforce the core skills and look at practicing what children have learnt in terms of vocabulary and spelling, and again it's all that interactive game element which children instantly engage with, and because it is very much differentiated, it can support from your weakest to your brightest learners, and it can push them, so you've really got the best of both in that sense. So this one, Britannica, is a little bit different in that it is not essentially a programme just to do with literacy, and it's not a programme that looks at spelling per se or grammar. Instead, it provides you with text and information at a safe and up-to-date, age-appropriate level. Now, here is where you can really integrate that digital literacy. So Britannica is very much, it It's set up like the web browser would be. Children can explore the different tabs and elements. It goes from primary school to secondary school, and there are many different kind of gradings and levels within that children can access. So there's encyclopedia articles, there are games on there and learning resources that children can access. We found this particularly useful in the wider curriculum, for example, when researching in geography or history. It's a very safe way for children to do their own research and for you to guide that. It also supports them in navigating information. So there is lots of information provided and they have to work through, and this kind of gets progressively harder if you're looking from early primary and then later secondary. It really does teach them the skill of filtering information, of using, you know, keywords and flags so that they can filter out what's not important and what they do want to find out about. Now, these last two are not subscription based and they're not essentially online tools in the same sense that the previous things were, but they're just a few things that I wanted to point out which you can just delve in to for free straight away. So if you haven't been to the National Literacy Trust website, which I'm sure most of you have already, it's a really a great resource for teachers, more for teachers than for students to go to, but there is lots and lots of information there. There's a new family zone there with the supporting activities for parents to do at home, and all of the things on there are really straightforward. There are lots of book lists and suggestions on there. This has been fundamental to us in creating our story time book lists and the books that we want to focus on as a trust. I think keeping up to date with award winners and with suggested literature, because as with any school and any person wanting to secure a definite programme of reading, so of suggested books that you want teachers to look at, that soon becomes outdated. And actually this has really been our go-to, both as a trust but also in our work as an English hub with our schools. We've been directing them towards this because there are always suggestions and there are up-to-date information on kind of the best literature. So you've got from non-fiction and fiction to poetry, and the consideration of all of those within your curriculum. And again, there's resources on there from early years to secondary. And again, you more than likely have seen and heard of BBC Bite Size. So there are elements now where there is lots of resources for home learning. And while that might not be presented in a way you can just take out and use in the classroom, actually there are lots of really useful interactive clips on there and they're all free. So there's really useful spelling clips, punctuation. They're normally, you know, 2 to 3 minutes of the really short, snappy. And it's definitely a resource that I think kind of, as I've been a teacher, has gone in and out of use for me, but every time I come back to it I realise actually, yeah, there are lots of resources here. And of course it might not be that it gives you a full lesson ready to go that is the most inspiring, but what it does do is give some really kind of sound foundations, and it's a really easy thing to share with parents who might want to be supporting at home, and it's obviously a free resource, so it's an easy one to get access to. So just to summarise, there are huge benefits of using these online tools, and we have seen them kind of firsthand, both in terms of progress within literacy but also within the digital literacy that our students have here. Feedback from parents is always really for these these elements. Of course, having these online resources can be expensive. You might not necessarily have access to all of them, and I think that's why choosing the one that fits into that gap you have in your specific school setting is really important. So is it spelling that you really need to look at? Is it more independent vocabulary, grammar-based activities? Or do you just need access to some more quality texts that the children can read and aren't restricted in just having a few paper copies of, but there's actually thousands, hundreds of resources. So it's thinking about what you need in your school. There's of course the immediate feedback they give to children, the measurable progress towards goals. So lots of them have awards and targets. Teachers can set targets and control what the children are assigned, which is really, really useful. We find that really motivating for our children here. There's obviously opportunities to differentiate instruction where you wouldn't have previously been able to. And then there is that time-saving element, which again, as I said, just needs to be taken under the consideration that teachers are using these in the most effective way. So they're not independent necessarily in terms of you haven't got a whole lesson's worth of activities there that the children can work through, although you could spend that long on them, but actually with the role of the teacher directing their learning as well, it's that collaboration of digital tools within the classroom, within the teacher also directing the children's learning. So hopefully that was useful for some of you. We've got lots of people coming to the event, different histories in terms of what they might already have access to or what they might already know about. So I don't know if there are any questions already or whether anyone would like to ask any questions. We will try our best to answer them if there are.
Yes, so thanks, Vicky. There are just a couple of questions. So one's going back to Literacy Planet that you talked about right near the beginning. And someone was asking, are teachers able to lock certain areas on Literacy Planet to ensure that pupils complete the activities that they assign first?
That's a really good question. I think when you assign, you set up an activity, they have, I think I'm right in saying they have to complete that activity first. But there are ways, I know there definitely are ways that you could minimise that activity and they could go to others. So I'm not 100% sure whether you could lock it completely, if that makes sense.
No, I think you've answered that one. And then just one related to Espresso. So do children get individual logins or is it universal?
So for Espresso, it's universal logins. So Espresso is definitely one where it is perhaps less controlled by the teacher because there is less opportunity for the teacher to direct them, pre-direct them and set up activities. So whereas for Reader Writer and for Literacy Planet, you can pre-assign different activities, with Espresso, it would come from that instruction from you as a teacher and students would have to go and find that activity, but it's not individual logins. So again, you don't have that element of recording progress that you do have with some of the other programs.
No, that's great. And I think those are all the questions that have come in. So unless any more come in the next couple of seconds, I'd like to say thanks to Vicky and thanks for you all for joining us. And yes, please post any questions that you want to, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But thanks to everybody, and have a good rest of your afternoon.
Great, thank you.